Welcome to this week's look at the state of the New York City real estate market. We're going to take a look at what is happening in the New York City market. We're going to get started first with what has been happening over the last week. In the luxury market, we saw, again, a very strong showing with more contracts signed than the previous week. 29 contracts were signed last week for properties priced at $4 million and above. This is a trend consistent with the one that we have been seeing for well over a year. And it is this part of the market that is the very strongest, as you've heard me say previously. These are largely cash transactions, and it's a wide assortment of buyers. People who already live here, people who don't live here but live in the U.S., foreign buyers. It is fascinating to see how this part of the market just continues to be so very strong. Also, the trend continues that condos are vastly outselling all other property types, co-ops, townhouses, perhaps largely because these are turnkey properties. They are brand new properties for the most part. A lot of new development in these numbers. I'm going to get into some more specifics about why that is important, this turnkey aspect. But let's move on now, and we'll talk a little bit about Manhattan and Brooklyn. Manhattan is up 9% for supply at 5,868 properties. It is still down 9% from last year. The demand in Manhattan is moving in the right direction at 2,966, up almost 13% for the month. But buyers and sellers, I should say, are facing some headwinds. The higher interest rates, the kind of macro conditions overall in the financial markets, world news, things like that. Brooklyn supply rose about 6% for the month, and at 3,159 is only slightly above where the inventory was last year. At 1,711, the demand is up about 9% from last month, although here too, buyers continue to navigate this very challenging climate. Again, the macro conditions that are really having an effect on this part of the market, the below 4 million, let's call it that. Here's what stood out to me this week, this continuation of a tale of two markets, meaning the luxury market and everything else. So given that we know the luxury market is just chugging right along, it is largely driven by cash. It has a very big pool of buyers, whereas the rest of the market is impacted by all these mortgage interest rates. We do have some understanding of why that is happening, but it continues to be fascinating. There is one contract that stood out. It was the number one contract signed. It was a penthouse at 200 East 75th Street being sold by the sponsor, so brand new, nobody's lived there before. It is penthouse 4. It was asking $19.7 million. It has about 4,900 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 5.5 bathrooms, 2 terraces off of the great room and library that total about 334 square feet. Formal dining room has a gas fireplace, which is nice and cozy, and a very large kitchen that has an island and an eat-in area. This sale is important because it is a good illustration of what is of interest to buyers right now. Something that is a pretty glorious property to begin with, penthouse property, also brand new condition. They don't have to do a thing. And it also falls into that condo category, which is so important to many, many buyers right now. The Manhattan and Brooklyn markets are essentially in the same boat. And the big picture here is demand is improving, but with mortgage rates ticking back up to 6.25%, the conditions do remain challenging. So, some thoughts on strategy. Let's look at renovated versus unrated properties. This is the question that many buyers are faced with. So we'll focus on Manhattan first. And we can see that buyers are paying a very big premium, 16%, for renovated versus unrenovated properties. Let's call them renovated, let's call them turnkey properties. This is no doubt a reflection of the high cost of time and money of doing renovations. For sellers, understanding condition is critical, and aspirational pricing rarely works, and only if the product, the property supports it. For buyers, the opportunity here remains in unrenovated units where relative value can still be found if they are willing to take on the work. Let's look at new development in Brooklyn versus, let's say, resale properties. Now, in a way, we're kind of talking about the same thing, right? Turnkey versus a property that has been used by others. Brooklyn new development currently commands a 20% premium over resale properties. This highlights how segmented the Brooklyn market has become. Pricing varies widely by neighborhood, condition, and type. And the takeaway here, if you are a buyer or seller, is that while Brooklyn is showing some strength long-term, today's market is highly localized, with outcomes depending more on micro factors than broad trends. That's it for this week's look at the state of the New York City real estate market. I will continue to track the market conditions, keep you informed. If you have questions about the current market conditions, how they affect your position, if you're a current buyer or seller, or you are a property owner, or you're a buyer just thinking about buying, please reach out to me or post your questions below. I'm always happy to help you with your real estate puzzles. As always, my thanks to the Olshan Luxury Report and to Urban Digs. The work they do helps me to help you to make great decisions. I'll be back next week with the very latest news on what's happening in the New York City real estate market. In the meantime, take care.